When Eleanor Whitmore fired her young black driver on a whim, she never imagined how profoundly that moment would alter both their lives. Behind Daniel Carter's polite demeanor and impeccable driving record lay an extraordinary gift, one that would shatter Eleanor's carefully constructed worldview. But in a society where talent often remains unseen beneath superficial judgments, could Daniel's passion for music ever find its true audience? Eleanor Whitmore stood by her floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out over the manicured gardens of her Beacon Hill estate. The morning sun refracted through the diamond on her finger, casting glimmers of light across the imported marble floors. At 46, Eleanor possessed everything money could buy, and nothing that truly mattered. Mrs. Whitmore, her house manager, Walter, appeared at the doorway. "Your 10 a.m. appointment has been moved to 11, and Mr. Reynolds has called 3 times this morning." Eleanor didn't turn. "Tell Richard I'll call when I'm ready." And Walter, she glanced at her watch, irritation creeping in her voice. "Where is Daniel with the car? I told him I needed to leave by 9:30. He's been waiting for 20 minutes, ma'am." Her lips tightened. Then why wasn't I informed? The drive to her charity board meeting was silent. Eleanor stared at her phone, ignoring the back of Daniel's head. After 2 years as her driver, he should know better than to arrive early, disrupting her meticulously planned schedule. That evening, as rain pelted against the windows of her study, Eleanor reviewed quarterly reports from her late husband's real estate holdings. Carter had been dead for 7 years, but his empire, now hers, continued to expand, unlike the friendships she had once maintained. The invitations had dwindled after the first year of widowhood, when her grief hardened into a brittle shell few bothered to penetrate. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Will be 10 minutes late tomorrow. Grandson's graduation ceremony." Eleanor stared at the message, irritation rising like bile. No request, just an announcement, as if her schedule should bend to accommodate his personal life. She had given him a generous salary, comprehensive benefits, even paid for his wife's cancer treatments 3 years ago. And this was his gratitude? She typed quickly, "This is unacceptable. We'll discuss tomorrow." The next morning, Daniel stood stoically in her foyer as Eleanor listed his recent transgressions. His tardiness, the extra turn last week that added 7 minutes to her commute, the classical station he played when he assumed she wasn't listening. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore," he said quietly, "if you're unhappy with my service." "I'm not unhappy, Daniel. I'm disappointed. There's a difference." She straightened a vase of white roses. "Perhaps it's time for someone with more attention to detail." His eyes widened slightly, the only indication her words had landed. "You're firing me? I prefer to see it as an opportunity for both of us to make a change." Eleanor handed him an envelope. "Your severance is generous. Please leave your keys with Walter." As Daniel walked out, shoulders straight despite the blow, Eleanor felt a flicker of something, regret, perhaps, before she smothered it. Sentimentality was for those who couldn't make difficult decisions. Success required standards. Her husband had taught her that. That night, Eleanor sat alone in her music room, staring at the grand piano that had gone untouched since Carter's death. The mansion's silence wrapped around her like an invisible cage, gilded with wealth but impenetrable all the same. Daniel Carter's fingers danced across his worn keyboard, headphones clamped over his ears as dawn broke over his small Dorchester apartment. The composition was nearly finished, a piece that had come to him in dreams for weeks. The final notes hung in the air, a question without an answer, a journey without a destination. He sighed, saving the file before glancing at the clock. 6:15 a.m. Just enough time to shower before his interview. His 5th this month. "You're going to nail this one," his roommate, Jamal, said, handing him a mug of coffee. "Law firms need paralegals who aren't afraid of hard work." Daniel adjusted his tie and nodded. The pay would cover rent and leave a little for next semester's tuition. He didn't mention his real dream, Berklee College of Music. The applications he had completed twice but never submitted. The cost was too prohibitive. The odds too long. 3 hours later, he sat on the tee, heading home. Another rejection added to his growing collection. We're looking for someone with more experience. The hiring manager's eyes had never quite met his. His phone buzzed with a notification from a job search app. A new listing, personal driver needed, Beacon Hill. Immediate start. Competitive salary. Daniel hesitated. He had never been a chauffeur, but he had a clean driving record and had worked delivery jobs through college. The location meant a wealthy employer, probably demanding, but the pay caught his attention. What did he have to lose? The Whitmore estate was intimidating. A brick and granite mansion with black iron gates and security cameras tracking his approach. Daniel straightened his jacket, mentally rehearsing his introduction as he rang the bell. The house manager who answered, Walter, had the practiced neutrality of someone who had seen people come and go without forming attachments. He led Daniel to a sunlit study, where Eleanor Whitmore waited, scanning his resume with narrowed eyes. You have no experience as a personal driver, she stated, looking up to study him. No, ma'am, but I have 4 years of professional driving experience with Boston Courier Services, maintaining a perfect safety record while managing time-sensitive deliveries. This position requires discretion, punctuality, and professionalism, she continued. I attend confidential business meetings, social events, and occasionally travel outside the city. My schedule is non-negotiable. I understand, Mrs. Whitmore. My previous position required similar confidentiality with legal documents and client information. She raised an eyebrow, her expression suggesting surprise at his articulate response. Your degree is in business administration? Yes, ma'am. Boston University, class of 23. Then why apply for a driver position? The question lingered between them. Daniel could offer the convenient answer. Bills to pay while seeking opportunities, but something in her challenging gaze pushed him toward honesty. Because I need stability while I pursue my long-term goals. And I believe I can provide the reliable service you need. He paused. And because 23 rejections suggest I need to broaden my approach. A flicker of something, respect, perhaps, crossed her face before disappearing behind her professional mask. The hours are long. The pay is $30 per hour. 2 weeks vacation annually. Benefits after 90 days. Walter will provide the details. If we proceed, you'll start tomorrow. 7 a.m. Sharp. Don't be late, Mr. Carter. As Daniel followed Walter out, instructions and schedules filling his head, he glimpsed a grand piano through partially open doors. His fingers twitched involuntarily, muscle memory responding to the sight of polished black and white keys. Mrs. Whitmore doesn't like that room disturbed, Walter muttered, closing the doors firmly. First rule of this house, respect the boundaries. Daniel nodded, understanding that some boundaries were spoken, others implied, and crossing either could cost him this unexpected opportunity.